Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick930, and today we're going to be taking a look back at Battlefield Bad Company 2. Bad Company 2 released in spring 2010 for the PS3, Xbox 360, and PC, and aimed to improve on everything wrong with the previous entry in the series. It was built on the Frostbite 1.5 engine and features even more dynamic destruction and much more impressive graphics. The multiplayer featured 8 maps at launch and added 6 more through free updates. The maps of Bad Company 2 offered far more variety than the last game, with snowy mountainsides, lush jungles, and a larger overall scale. An expansion pack set in Vietnam was also made available that added 5 more maps to the game, but this was separate from the base game's content. Bad Company 2 brought back the ability to revive teammates, resupply them with ammo, voice chat between squad members, and there was just more emphasis on team play in general. The game also featured a single-player campaign just like the last one, and again continues where the Bad Company story left off in the past game. You play as Preston Marlowe again as you seek to stop a ruthless warlord from using a weapon of mass destruction that's apparently been around since World War II. The story takes on a much more serious tone than the previous entry, which honestly is kind of disappointing because I like the original game's goofy premise of going AWOL from the US Army and hunting for gold bullion. Sarge, Sweetwater, and Haggard also all return as well, just as hilarious as they were before. There's even a few jabs thrown in that are aimed directly at the Call of Duty franchise. Bad Company 2 features an overall more polished experience than the previous game, with tons of enhancements to gunplay, progression, and a stronger emphasis on online team play. The game now featured a significantly larger amount of destruction, with players capable of chipping away at pieces of concrete to make better sightlines, and entire buildings now having the potential to be completely collapsed. New game modes were introduced into the game that put even stronger emphasis on the squad play by pitting your squad against 4 other squads in deathmatch. There was also a squad rush mode that offered a smaller, more competitive scale to the popular rush game mode, and the rush game mode also saw a return with an increased player count. Conquest was also made available at launch this time, which pleased several fans of the franchise, and maps this time around felt like they were actually designed for Conquest, and they worked very well with Rush as well. Bad Company 2 marks the first time in the franchise where weapons would now have bullet drop over long distances. This helped add a larger skill curve to the Recon class and aimed to make the class less overpowered. Unfortunately, the maps were so small to begin with that this didn't really make much of a difference to Recon, and they still seem to be the most powerful class in the game. Bad Company 2 also marks the first time that we see the 3D spotting mechanic come into play. Players can now press Q or select, depending on what you were playing on, when aiming at hostile units to spot them for the rest of the team. The enemy would appear as a tiny orange triangle, making it easy for players to see them from a distance. This spotting mechanic made it difficult to cross open fields, as most players would turn their attention to the closest spotted player and try to be the first to steal the kill. This mechanic also worked through trees and smoke effects, making it a bit unrealistic when a player spotted you through them and started shooting at the marker. Players in Bad Company 2 no longer had a health bar, and instead the game utilizes health regen, a feature that had become increasingly popular with its mainstream introduction in Call of Duty franchise. Players simply had to wait around a corner if they were hurt, and their health would replenish on its own. A friendly medic could come around and speed up this process with a medical box, but you were never forced to find a medic to get back to 100% health. The customization system this time around was far more robust, with the ability to add and remove scopes in the spawn screen, along with some enhancements to player health, max ammunition, damage output, and even a bit of vehicle customization. Bad Company 2 features 4 classes this time: Assault, Engineer, Medic, and Recon, eliminating the needless Special Forces unit from the previous game and instead allowing all classes to have access to shotguns. The Assault class had access to assault rifles as usual and could equip grenade launchers to help them take advantage of the enhanced destruction in Frostbite 1.5. The Assault class no longer has a healing syringe, but instead carries around ammo boxes to resupply friendly teammates on the field. The Engineer class had access to carbine rifles with silencers attached by default. They also had a choice between 3 different rocket launchers, all with different effectiveness at taking out enemy vehicles, along with anti-vehicle mines and a repair tool to help repair friendly vehicles. The Medic class had access to light machine guns, and guns like the M60 were incredibly powerful weapons when tap-fired from long range. Medics were also given their defibrillator paddles back after their absence in the previous game, so players could once again revive their downed teammates. There was no cooldown on the revive in Bad Company 2, so you could potentially revive your teammate infinitely and repeatedly. Medics also had access to health boxes to help speed up health regen. The Recon class had C4 plastic explosives, motion sensor grenades, and a mortar strike that could be called in with binoculars. They also had access to sniper rifles and were once again one of the more powerful classes in the game. There was no scope glint for these snipers, so players had a difficult time identifying where long-distance snipers were hiding. The vehicles of Bad Company 2 also received some improvements, with tanks feeling much more effective, helicopters being easier to destroy, and new vehicles like the ATV were added to objective areas so that players could easily get back into the fight without having to walk forever. We also saw the return of Black Hawk transport helicopters, which could be used to devastate enemies if flown around objectives by a skilled squad. Bad Company 2 also brings back the deep progression system we've come to expect from the series, with a lot of unlocks this time around, including weapons and attachments. You could also collect dog tags off of the enemies, and you had a pretty handy list to see who you killed with a melee weapon, and you can even track to see how many times you killed that person with a melee weapon. You could rank up a total of 50 times, and weapons would unlock based on experience with each class. There were also veteran ranks again that awarded players who had purchased and played previous Battlefield games with unique weapons like the M1 Garand rifle. Bad Company 2 offered a lot of free content for players, including several maps. Players could also purchase weapon shortcuts this time, and this allowed them to unlock content without having to earn it. DICE made available a downloadable cooperative mode called Onslaught that allowed players to team up in a squad of 4 and take down AI enemies on 4 of the multiplayer maps. And finally, there was the Battlefield Vietnam expansion pack, which allowed players to go back to Vietnam and fight as either the American soldiers or the Viet Cong with tons of weapons and vehicles from that era. This expansion was paid DLC and featured 5 new maps and some music that was also featured in the original Battlefield Vietnam. So Bad Company 2 helped to steer the Battlefield franchise back on course after its misstep with the original Bad Company game 2 years prior. Frostbite 1.5 allowed for an unprecedented level of destruction, with entire buildings now collapsing on top of the enemies. DICE managed to offer something to shooter fans that games like Call of Duty could never deliver. The franchise had begun directly competing with Call of Duty, and evidence of the game's influence would soon become more noticeable as the franchise evolved. But Battlefield still manages to maintain its focus on team play by introducing and reintroducing elements like spotting, reviving, resupplying, and the ability to communicate directly using microphones. Weapon and vehicle customization had finally been introduced and would only get more advanced with the next title in the franchise. And I'll talk all about that next time when we go back and revisit another massive installment in the franchise, Battlefield 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Gaming Retrospective.